Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is continuing the rejection from this exact area of resistance in the immediate short term, and this is happening while we're seeing a continued break towards the downside in the US stock market below a key area of support that we need to pay attention to, because this is not good news for Bitcoin and crypto in the short term, while Ethereum is also now perfectly rejecting from this exact level of resistance here, while the price of Solana is continuing to play out that overbought signal. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, just before taking a look at the Bitcoin and crypto charts today, taking a quick look at the US stock market today, because over the last one day, we have now started to see a break below this crucial area of support in the S&P 500 index on the 2-hour time frame, which is of course a bearish signal, at least in the short term, for the US stock market. This is finally breaking the larger sideways price range that we've been in over the last couple of months. Since the end of 2025 onwards, we've been just bouncing around in this same sideways price range, but once again, we're now finally starting to leave this sideways price range, and it's not leaving in the bullish direction. We're leaving it towards the downside, breaking towards the downside. And so just keep this in mind throughout the video. The crypto market usually follows similar price action to whatever the stock market is doing. So especially if the stock market fails to get back above this area in the next few trading days in the new week, then in that situation, of course, if we remain below that area of support here, then that's just a bearish signal for stocks, and therefore most likely a bit of a short-term bearish signal for the crypto market. So keep that in mind throughout the video. And if we're taking a look at the Bitcoin charts today on the weekly time frame, nothing's really changed at all, not just over the last one day, but nothing's changed for months. I'll say the same thing that I've been saying for many months now on the weekly time frame, which is right now the super trend indicator still sitting in the red, indicating a larger bear market or a larger correction in the price of Bitcoin. And of course, we're still playing out this massive bearish divergence on the weekly Bitcoin price chart, which confirmed all the way back here around October 2025. And so once again, as I've been saying every day since all the way back up here, this means we're most likely going to see a lot of weakness, most likely a larger pullback in the price of Bitcoin. So overall, in terms of the larger trend we're in, of course, it is technically still bearish. Nothing's really changed at all over the last one day. And if we're taking a look at the 3-day Bitcoin price chart, in terms of the short to midterm during the larger bearish trend, we're still seeing very similar price action right now compared to what we saw near the end of 2025, around end of November, all of December, and even early this year in January. We did see obviously very similar price action back then as to what we're seeing right now. Mostly choppy sideways price action with a little bit of a bullish relief throughout, slowly heading towards the bullish direction, but overall not seeing a significant amount of bullish momentum, and of course not confirming the end of the larger bearish trend. It is possible we can ultimately head lower later on with another leg towards the downside. And so as always, understand the difference between the different time frames. We're still in the longer term bearish trend, and I'd only start to flip potentially a little bit more bullish again in terms of a reversal out of the larger bearish trend if we first actually confirm a strong breakout above this resistance here and actually hold above that area, not break back to the downside. The area I'm talking about, by the way, is sitting in between around 72,000 to 76,000. So for as long as the price is below that area right there, or continuing to struggle and reject from that area, obviously right now we're still in this range in between roughly 60k to roughly 73k, close towards these local highs. And so just keep that in mind. Continue to expect strong resistance in between 72,000 to 76,000. And of course, over the last few days or so, that's exactly where the price is rejected from as expected. Once again, expect rejections and struggle around this area of resistance is very, very likely. And if we're taking a look at the 4-hour Bitcoin price chart, of course, over the last couple of days, we have played out this overbought signal. And I did mention in my last video, we've already reset towards more neutral levels, which means it was possible we could start to slow down the bearish price action. But obviously with the dump in the stock market, that really dragged down the crypto market. So as always, we need to definitely pay pay attention to what the US stock market is doing, because if this flashes a strong bearish signal in the short term, like a break below a very important area of support, that's also a strong bearish signal, at least in the short term, for Bitcoin and crypto, helping to cause a bit more of a pullback. And so obviously, while that's played out this overbought signal over the last couple of days, alongside following the stock market pulling back further, we've also once again rejected from that major resistance. So we did have a few different signals here, all pointing towards this little pullback, which I did mention a couple of days ago now, around 2 videos ago on the channel back there. And so ultimately, that's just basically continued over the last one day, with really the stock market dumping that's really not been good for Bitcoin and crypto. And so as of recording this video, the price of Bitcoin is now breaking back into this range right here, sitting in between roughly 65,500 to 69,500. First of all, we have strong support here in the short term in between 65.5k to 66,000. We also have more support all the way down here at around 62.5k to 63,000. We have strong resistance now sitting in between around 69,000 to 69.5k based on previous resistance here. We also have a lot of resistance in between roughly 71 to 72,000, alongside of course that major resistance on the 3-day time frame that I mentioned earlier. And so ultimately, just expect the price to bounce from around these levels of support, reject from around these levels of resistance, and of course expect the price of Bitcoin to follow similar price action to what the stock market is doing. But considering the stock market, as of recording this video, is just basically closing up right now, and of course over the weekends the stock market does not trade, that is where we could start to see maybe just a slight little relief, most likely remaining in some sort of range here for the weekend until we see the stock market's next move in the new week. And if we're taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, we can see that over the last one day, of course, alongside this pullback right here, we've taken out these small levels of liquidity. But in terms of significant levels of liquidity to watch out for, we do now have a level building at around 64.9k to 65,000. So roughly $65,000. We do actually have a decent amount of liquidity now building around there. And then we have a small amount building around 66,000 and a small amount building at around 67.2k. And also a decent amount still sitting back up here at around 74.1 to 74.2k. But considering the short-term weakness in the price, and considering that we do technically have a little more liquidity towards the downside that's close to the price compared to what we have towards the upside here, it is quite likely that over the next 1 to 2 days, we'll look a little bit more bearish than bullish. So either continuing a little bit more of a pullback, or maybe just some choppy sideways price action, slightly leaning in the bearish direction. Kind of like this is a very likely scenario just for the weekend based on the current circumstances now in the short-term price action. But remember, that's just talking about very short-term moves, which flip basically every couple of days, as we can see in terms of the midterm or longer term. Right now, the midterm, if you want to call it that, talking about a period of weeks, maybe a month or so, we're still bouncing around in this range on the 3-day time frame. And of course, the longer term, the larger multi-month trend, not changed at all for months now, technically still bearish on the weekly time frame. But obviously, you can still profit from all of these moves using things like short positions, for example, to actually profit along the way towards the downside. But if you want to trade any of these moves, you need to be set up ready to go on a crypto exchange. And if you use the first link below the video in the description and in the pinned comment, that first link below this video will take you to this page right here over on the 2bit crypto exchange, which by the way is a no KYC exchange and is an exchange that I personally use myself. And simply just by making an account using that first link below the video, once again, you can take advantage of up to 3.5 million USD out of this massive prize pool right here, simply just by trading crypto using that link. And on top of this massive prize pool going on right now over on 2bit, there's also exclusive bonuses that are only available if you're making your 2bit account using that first link below the video. And so as you can see right here, simply just by trading crypto, you can also get free USDT into your account. This is actual withdrawable USDT, not just a trading bonus. So basically, just by trading crypto, you can get extra bonuses, exclusive bonuses, only available using that link on top of this major prize pool here that's going on. Also, once again, that first link below the video will take you to this page right here. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, or preparing to take the next trading opportunity, you might as well get set up ready to go using that first link below the video to 2bit. And remember, 2bit is also also a no KYC exchange. But with that being said, taking a quick look at the Bitcoin dominance chart on the daily time frame, and right now the current short-term move is basically just undoing the previous short-term move, which was undoing the previous move, so on and so forth, basically just bouncing around in a bit of a range at the moment, which means a lot of the major altcoins out there on average will still likely be performing very similar to whatever Bitcoin does, is basically what this is still telling us right now. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum on the 3-day time frame, of course the 3-day Ethereum price chart looks almost identical to the 3-day Bitcoin price chart, because the larger multi-month trend is technically still bearish, but the somewhat short to mid-term here relative to the 3-day time frame, talking about a period of weeks, maybe a month or so, is of course neutral to bullish in terms of the sideways price range here, playing out the oversold signal over the last 1 month now, exactly as predicted. But remember, we could see these sort of things play out during the larger bearish trend. Just because this is playing out right now in the short to mid-term, it doesn't necessarily mean this longer term bearish trend is completely over. For example, we're potentially still in a similar situation right now compared to what we saw near the end of 2025. That's still a risk that we need to be aware of. And as for support and resistance to watch out for, if we're especially taking a look at the daily Ethereum price chart, we still have strong support here based on this Fibonacci level at just above 1.8k, more specifically around 1820, and we have strong resistance in between 2150 to 2250. And if we're looking at the price over the last couple of days, that is exactly where the price perfectly rejected from as expected. Once again, as I always say, expect a lot of struggle and likely rejections from these major points of resistance here. And if we're zooming further into the short term, taking a look at the 4-hour Ethereum price chart, of course, over the last couple of days now, we have been playing out this overbought signal here in the 4-hour Ethereum RSI alongside even smaller timeframes. And right now we are approaching a short-term area of support here, sitting in between around 1910 to 1930. So just above 1.9k, we do have a decent amount of short-term support around there. But of course, this is talking about very short-term moves. If we're looking at the hour charts, like the 2-hour chart, 4-hour chart, for example, these sort of moves flip around very often. As we can see, they are only short-term moves. But if we're zooming out a little bit, once again, on the daily time frame, we're still ultimately just in a sideways price range, bouncing between support and resistance, which contains both short-term bullish moves and short-term bearish moves. And if we're taking a look at the price of XRP on the weekly time frame, in terms of the longer-term trend, technically it is still bearish. Things are still not looking good here. We're still playing out the massive bearish divergence on the weekly XRP price chart, which I've been talking about every single day now on the channel for around half a year, when pretty much no one else out there was talking about this around end of July, early August 2025, all the way back here. You can even check my videos all the way back then on the channel talking about this multi-month collapse still to come. But with that being said, now that all of this is still playing out, of course, we're also still running into this massive area of support worth paying attention to, sitting in between around $1.30 to $1.40. So we've not yet fully confirmed the break below that area, but if we ultimately confirm, let's just say, a weekly candle close below around $1.30, and especially if we fail to get back above that area, in that situation, the next target towards the downside would be sitting at roughly $1.13, and below that, the next major area of support I'll be watching is in between around 90 cents to $1. And if we're zooming into the 3-day time frame, we're also still trying to play out this oversold signal on the 3-day XRP RSI, but this is mostly playing out at the moment in the form of choppy sideways price action, kind of just having a shorter term break, not a lot of bullish price action, not a lot of bullish momentum, just a little bit of a break in the shorter term for the last few weeks or so from the larger bearish trend, but not necessarily confirming the end of the trend. It's possible we can ultimately resume the larger bearish trend at some stage later on. And if we're taking a look at the price of Solana on the 3-day time frame, it's a very similar situation for Solana as what I said for Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. Still the longer term multi-month trend technically still bearish, but in terms of the short to mid-term, we are within this range right here in between support and resistance. First of all, we have a lot of support here at around $75 to $80, and a lot of resistance starting at close to $95, which we pretty much almost perfectly rejected from. We got within $1 from $95 $5 before perfectly rejected from basically just underneath that resistance right there. And we're also still trying to play out this oversold signal in the 3-day Solana RSI, as I've been talking about every day for around a month now on the channel, which means we're most likely going to play out either more choppy sideways price action or just a very, very slight little bullish relief. Basically the same sort of price action as what we saw near the end of 2025, but not necessarily confirming the end of the larger bearish trend. And if we're zooming further into the short term, taking a look at the 2-hour Solana price chart, once again, we've been playing out this overbought signal over the last couple of days to the point where we are now almost at oversold. We're not there just yet, but we are approaching oversold in the 2-hour Solana RSI. In other words, if this pullback continues how it's been going over the last 1 to 2 days, if this continues even just over the next 12 to 24 hours, how it's been going at the current rate, in that situation, it's quite likely we would hit oversold. Once again, we're not there just yet, but if it continues, it could soon hit oversold. And if it hits oversold, of course, that is the opposite to an overbought signal, meaning we're going too far to the downside too quickly just in the short term, and we need some time to reset a little bit, which means most likely some sort of little bounce in the price. But remember, an oversold signal, just like an overbought signal, is not necessarily a reversal signal. It doesn't guarantee the bottom or the top. If we're talking about these oversold or overbought signals, it just is basically a shorter term signal telling us that we are needing some sort of little relief, a bit of a break from what we have been seeing leading into that signal. And I'd also expect a bit of short term support around here, sitting in between roughly $82.70 to $83.70, give or take. Expect a decent amount of support around that area on the price chart. And if we're taking a look at the price of Chainlink on the 3-day time frame, it's a very similar situation here as well. Obviously, longer term multi-month trend, technically still bearish, but the short to mid-term situation, talking about a period of weeks, maybe 1 or 2 months, is that we're still ultimately in this range right here, playing out mostly choppy sideways price action, but slightly leaning towards the bullish direction, kind of similar to what we saw near the end of 2025 during the larger bearish trend. So that's still the situation right now, playing out this oversold signal in the 3-day Chainlink RSI. And as for support and resistance to watch out for on this Chainlink price chart, we have strong support still sitting in between $7.90 to $8.50 and strong resistance in between $9.50 to $10, which is pretty much exactly where the price rejected from over the last couple of days. And if we're taking a look at the short-term moves here on the 4-hour time frame, obviously we have been playing out an overbought or close to overbought signal in the 4-hour Chainlink RSI, which means expect some sort of cool off moving forward. But we're now also hitting a area of support in the short term, sitting in between around $8.60 to $8.70, at least in the short term. That is the immediate support to pay attention to. And if the price were to actually break below the area and flip that into resistance, for example, in that situation, I would expect to move down towards these lows right here in the lower $8 area, around $8.10 to $8.20 approximately. And if that were to happen, of course, right now that's not confirmed at all, but if that were to happen, then that would also likely drag the RSI down towards oversold, giving us a signal to expect some sort of little bounce if we actually confirm some sort of oversold signal. But once again, we're not there just yet. In the meantime, we are running into this short-term support, which at least so far, as I've recorded in the video, is holding as support. But once again, despite seeing bullish and bearish moves in the short term, these are only shorter term moves that don't last very long. They flip very often. As we can see, they reverse very often in terms of the larger situation. Once again, we're still in the sideways price range during a much larger bearish trend. That is still the situation. Not a lot changed over the last 1 day. And remember, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of crypto, no matter what direction the price goes, then make sure to check out the links below this video to those exchanges if you want to take advantage of massive bonuses only available using those links to certain exchanges. And if you want to actually know how you can trade crypto, no matter what direction the price goes, to profit at all times in the market, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen, because the video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions. And the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.